So I shared this image of Jesus, and I was talking about the halo around his head, which is that yellow disc there, and I was saying that the halo is around his head to show people that he attained Christ consciousness and he became an enlightened ascended master. And some people, rightly so, commented saying, what do you mean? Because Jesus was the Christ, so what do you mean he attained Christ consciousness? Like, how does he become a Christ? He already is the Christ. So really, really good question. So Jesus, up in the spiritual realms, he is the Son, he is the Christ, and he is Christ consciousness. He's like our higher self, really, so we can all too become and integrate with and become Christ consciousness and become like our oversoul. Anyway, Jesus, the Son, the Christ, he came down to earth to help teach humanity how we too can become Christ just like him. So Jesus always said, follow me, follow my path, and I will lead you to the heavens, to God, and you will attain Christ consciousness. The way is through him. So he taught the way, which is how to basically live on earth to incarnate Christ consciousness within. So because Jesus was born on earth, Jesus was born into a human body, and he had to descend from the heavens down onto this earth. So he had to descend in consciousness all the way down to basically be born in a human body and to be born in sin like we all are. So he was born unenlightened. He wasn't enlightened when he was born. He hadn't brought his full Christ consciousness through when he was born, because that physical vessel, that physical body, didn't have enough light in it in order to hold the Christ consciousness. So only a small part of him came into the body. And then what happens is, as he grew up and as he learned, and he remembered his gifts, he remembered how you're meant to live, to harness as much light as you can in this vessel. His vessel became clean enough, it became filled with enough light that at the age of 33, he didn't die on a cross, he wasn't crucified. The cross and the resurrection story is actually the story of his enlightenment. So he became enlightened at 33, which means that at 33 years old, he attained enough light, he raised his kundalini up to the top, and he then incarnated his full Christ-like self and became a full true Christ on this earth. He was born into a human form. All of us are born in sin. This means that we're born in a unenlightened body, only really because of how our parents have been living. Because if our parents were ascended enlightened masters, then maybe the babies that are born will be enlightened masters, but that's not the way that humanity's been. And so the reason Jesus came in the first place is because humanity was not in a state of enlightenment and they needed help, and that's the reason he's come back again. So that's how Jesus attained his Christ consciousness status, because he always had the spark of light within him. He always had that awareness, but he wasn't able to really incarnate his full highest self on this plane, in this plane, and anchor it in until his body and his vessel was light enough and ready to do that, which has happened at the age of 33. Now, people talk about 33 being a spiritual significant number only because we've got 33 vertebrae in our spine, and talking about the whole story of the resurrection as literally an allegory for enlightenment. And it is true. It explains the absolute biochemical process that happens within our bodies when we attain enlightenment and Christ consciousness, because the kundalini and the Christ oil comes up our spine, it comes up the 33 vertebrae, and it basically gets crucified up in our brain at the medulla oblongata. And on the spiritual energetic level, the kundalini raises right up to the top and bursts through the crown chakra. It illuminates and fills every chakra with light, and it basically makes you illuminated or enlightened, which is basically it. You are filled with enough light that you attain Christ consciousness, you incarnate your highest self, you unify your soul so you don't live in sin or emotion anymore. You live from a higher mind and higher love. So that is enlightenment, and feel free to have a look at this picture which explains the biblical story. It is all an allegory, just explaining how to achieve enlightenment and Jesus did it at the age of 33 as well. It's like the story is a metaphor and it's true at the same time, but Jesus didn't die on a cross. That was actually an ego death. He died to his old self, where at 33 he was reborn like a phoenix in the ashes. He had an ego death. He incarnated his highest light. He incarnated his Christ self in the plane, that on the earth plane. And then he was able to share and teach people how to become enlightened too. So he attained his halo at the age of 33, and then he was able to share to all his disciples how to do the same.